Welcome to the Freecast. I'm your host, Matt Carano. Here in studio with me, as always, is Mike Fine. Say hello, Mike.
Hey.
And Nicholas Boyle. Say hello, Nick.
Hello.
We got Roger Paxton here in spirit, but not on a mic. Actually, physically, but not on a mic. Banging stuff around, though, so he can definitely be felt. And then also special guest Joel Valenzuela, who we'll get to a little bit later, but say hi now.
Hi now.
Now you know his voice, everybody. When you hear it, you'll know who he is. But why don't we get into the news? Nick, what's going on?
All right. So got another new brewery coming to Portsmouth's West End. It's called Loaded Question. And the guy who's starting it is actually a current bartender at Earth Eagle Brewings.
Oh, nice.
Who's one of the co-founders of Earth Eagle. Actually spoke at the first Freecoast festival. The bartender who's going to be running this thing is called Tom Bath, and he's hoping to be open for business by December. This will be the West End's third brewery opening in a year. So the other two are Liar's Bench and Great Rhythm.
It's been a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to fill the demand.
Like, what's the population breakdown, too? Is there, like, I wonder if it's, like...
Drunk. 100% drunk.
Yes.
60% West Enders. They can handle it.
What was that, a FDR quote? A brewery for every family?
But Bath is saying that the space that he's looking to acquire reminds him... Well, actually, he's already acquired it, but it reminds him of a speakeasy. And this is a quote from Bath. It says, "Loaded Question was conceived on the idea that great beer mimics life. Our favorite beer changes with the season, the time of day, the weather, and the crew we are hanging out with. When the color, flavor, body, and aroma of the beer match the moment, it enriches the experience. Loaded Question is dedicated to understanding the infinite possibilities of craft beer and making memorable moments with our fellow beer lover."
That's poetic.
Yeah. So IPAs represent what stage of life again?
That was a great setup for something clever.
I don't
and then
know.
We had nothing.
I don't have it, but...
When you're hopping through, I don't know.
I don't know. When life's just kind of like bitter and kind of confusing, and you don't know what's going on.
That's right.
There is a big kind of fetish for IPAs, and I'm not a big IPA guy.
I like that term you used, fetish. It's not just an acquired taste. It's
No.
like you gotta have a kink to.
You
got to
work for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, what's going on in the West End is the State Street Saloon is looking to rebuild in the West End too. So just increasing the bar / alcohol influx in that area.
Mm-hmm.
As you all might remember, State Street Saloon recently burned down. Very sad event. But they're planning to rebuild, just not in the previous spot. I'm wondering if that is perhaps because of the price of that real estate.
Oh, I would. That's 100% the case. I can
Right?
tell you without even knowing.
Yeah. What if some evil developer just did some act of arson so they could move into that space?
And I have a feeling
Conspiracy
it's,
theory.
I think
So
it's
I got
the
all the
corporations.
documents.
Yeah, it's the corporations.
and might have to do with all these stupid historical district regulations.
Yeah, there's that too.
where they can't build certain way, and
I just don't think Bartlett Street Saloon has the same ring to it.
yeah, I think they're going to keep it called State Street Saloon.
Oh, is that like State Street discounts?
Yes,
Discounters?
That's right.
which is
On Route 1?
Yeah.
it's on Lafayette Street.
Actually, I wonder if it is easier to
Lafayette.
build if there's are there less requirements. I don't remember where the historic map is in Portsmouth, but I wonder if it's a little bit more relaxed.
Oh yeah,
is it?
You'd be outside the historic district.
Yeah, it's on the
So it's relaxed.
the
You
place.
just- one less group of bureaucrats to deal with.
You don't even have to go through them.
through the commission, right? Their jurisdiction it runs out on Islington. I think along Islington and along Middle for a while. But I would. I'm pretty sure they'd be well outside of it.
We should put like a sign out commemorating that like point in time.
It's
Right.
like a warning entering Massachusetts. Those
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was quick.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're back out.
Yeah, so they're going to be on Bartlett Street. So they're going to be on the other side of the railway tracks from Islington Street.
They are.
Right. So
It says right in here in my notes that the location hasn't been confirmed yet. But
Well-
this is breaking news.
well, that's where they're looking to rebuild.
I see. I got it. So not the exact location.
Nick's in the know.
He's got his finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try.
Excellent. And then last to say about that is just one of the signs from the former saloon was found in fair condition and looks like it'll be restored and put back up in the new place. So
Yeah,
good.
they're
The
going to
signs are
leave it with
expensive.
some charring just to be like, look how weather beaten we are. We've survived the storms, the fires, and everything.
I mean, that might have some charm to do it like that if it's if it's just a little bit charred.
Yeah, if you want your house to be charming, just half burn it down and kind of like keep it there.
Thanks, Joel. So,
Excellent. Moving forward, we've got. You want me to? Okay.
Yeah, you go ahead with this
Well,
one.
it's so the Rockingham Democrats are holding a meeting about the Free State Project by Granite State Progress, and I saw this going around. Shared it a little bit
Hi, Xandra.
today. That's right. That's-
interestingly, their group on Facebook is called the State Free Project, which they think is like a jab at the Free State Project. It's a way to like not know your. Well, I guess for their audience that would be a jab, but for us, guilty.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
It gets
ooh.
me a little excited. You
The
know?
Right.
burn, right? Anyway, the quote from so the report it was just a press release, so whoever from this group wrote it, but the quote that we saw in the paper was the Free State Project's stated purpose is to move to New Hampshire, take over state government, and establish a libertarian ideal utopia of doom. What do you think about that?
I think it's a straw man argument, and it's pretty lazy journalism.
Yeah, I mean, you can just go to the Free State Project website and actually read what it says, which is not this.
Like other human beings, this group of human beings is seeking to have an influence and make things better.
Oh my goodness! But they're not from around here.
Right.
Oh man.
Like the
So they hate immigrants.
like the hundreds of thousands of people who moved up from Massachusetts, bringing with them some notions of socialism
Like Maggie Hassan.
and trying to actually taking over the state government
yeah.
and shoving their Flatlander ideals down everyone's throats. The Free State Project is trying to make New Hampshire continue to be what brought us here in the first place.
But this is what they took that statement from, this is what it says, and most of you are familiar with this. But the Free State Project is an effort to recruit 20,000 liberty-loving people to move to New Hampshire. We're looking for neighborly, productive, tolerant folks from any and all walks of life, of all ages, creeds, and colors who agree to the political philosophy expressed in our statement of intent that government exists at most to protect people's rights and should neither provide for people nor punish them for activities that interfere with no one else. So that's what they took that statement from.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but that neighborly bit just makes me terrified. I don't want neighborly folks around me.
You're worried about Ned Flanders kind of people?
Yeah.
Indubitably.
Well, yeah, I mean they do this periodically. They have these little exposés of
They
the
had
Free
one-
State Project, and if I recall, I think
They had one last year in Hampton, I
They
believe.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kyle was there.
and it completely backfired, if I recall correctly.
Most
yeah.
of the people who attended were FSP people who were really polite.
Yeah, like a half
Yeah.
or I was there. It's like a half or a third of us.
Oh.
Have her third of the.
Well, why don't you tell us briefly what that was?
Yeah.
like?
So it was the same thing of, oh my gosh, find out about this evil Free State Project. Everyone come here. And then they showed up, and then we all showed up, and they kind of figured out before she started the presentation. And as soon as she was done with the presentation, I opened it up to questions. Right. And
So what was the ratio of porcupines to concerned progressives?
it was like a third to a half. It was like a good chunk of the room.
Was porcupines?
Yes, and a few of them brought their kids, and it was just a bunch of neighborly fun people. And I just said, "We're here, by the way. Ask us questions."
Did the
And-
Free Staters do like some sort of ritual sacrifice?
No,
They
as
didn't.
it turns out. Well, they do kind of like tear up some roads. That's why they're so bad in some areas.
You
But-
say we're here, we're different, we're proud of it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And
Um,
it was a very obviously you have to be polite when you're in front of most people. Just actually had just questions like, well, why did you like? What do you do? Like, do you have jobs? Like, yeah, we have jobs. How do you get money to come out here? So
Can you
we
procreate?
we find jobs, and we just get involved with the community. Oh, are you trying? Like, most of them are just very, like, genuinely curious, and I mean, they're left leaning people, which I mean, while I wish they wouldn't be, it's not necessarily a crime, and they just didn't know about us, and it's like, okay, now they know about us. They know that we're people that are just like them in about 60% of the ways, and then there's a few ways we disagree, but we're not bad people, and we're here to show up and participate and be polite and productive, and we're just mostly it just took the scare factor out because there's different people all around the world, and it's that fear of the unknown. Well, you know them, and they're not scary. What's the problem?
Right.
I mean, the problem is when people get in this partisan spirit, and it does promote this kind of ignorance, where you're only hearing your own little echo chamber, and you create this other, and they're very scary, and you don't really want to bother to learn a lot about them. So if you can say I'm a progressive, then you've got conservatives and libertarians. We know they're the enemy.
Yeah.
And we don't really need to know anything else about them. We just know they're bad and they're against everything we believe in. And then conservatives the same way. We're always everyone's enemy, but libertarians and
Even our own.
and progressives or liberals, they're bad. But the nice thing about being kind of above the fray in the way we are, being on either side, is we can show people that we have at least half of the issues in common with you. I mean, we're anti-war. We want to end drug prohibition. We do care about the poor and education and all these other things. So, just talk to us.
I would even go a step further and say we got 80 to 90% in common with most people. You'd say 50-50 on a political spectrum, but we want the same thing that everyone else wants. We want good educational opportunities for our children. We want good, the poor to be provided for. We want all these kinds of things. It's just that we're trying to do it in a completely voluntary and efficient way rather than
I will challenge that, though. If the hardcore progressives, some of them believe in equality as a good unto itself. And that is something where we're just never going to agree. They're just going to have to, one of us is going to have to change our mind, because the notion that people should just be equal,
that the outcome
should just be equal,
is ridiculous.
We just consider it to be unnatural and impossible to achieve, and not even necessarily desirable. People are all different. They have different skills. They have different interests. And trying to equalize, making everything uniform, actually could result in a pretty scary place.
Excellent. So, why don't you take this next one, Nick?
Sure.
Something about wood and crossing borders with wood.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So the New Hampshire State Police will be having DWI-style checkpoints for firewood this Memorial Day weekend.
Of course.
Yeah.
So that's right.
Listen,
If you're-
don't drive in wood.
Yeah, that's been a problem in the past.
So if you're heading up to the White Mountains to camp, you better not have firewood that's from Rockingham, Belknap, Hillsborough, or Merrimack County. Unless you.
What if you have like a twig, like just this one twig, or like one log?
I don't even know how they can
I got one of
tell
those.
where the wood is from.
Yeah. How
I
do you?
think-
Well, it's the.
I think you can have 0.08% of a bushel. That's the threshold.
And
Yes, I should actually take a large, sizable log, put it on the roof of my car, and etch in there illegal wood from up north, and just drive through, see what happens.
So what are they doing, Nick?
so, you can bring wood from those areas as long as the wood has been heated to 160 degrees Fahrenheit at least, and has been at that temperature for 75 minutes.
So burned is what you're telling me.
Basically, yes.
So ash. They're cool with ash.
The reason for this is because there's an invasive insect called the emerald ash borer, which targets ash trees in wood from these counties, and they can actually kill the ash trees within 3 to 5 years from initial infection.
A slow death.
And there is a
Painful.
and there is a penalty of $124 fine for using this illegal firewood.
Can you imagine
Yes.
giving people with guns the ability to look and see, to be able to check and see if you've got a piece of wood in your car, pull you over and confiscate that from you? Can you imagine that actually exists?
Yeah, let's say this in as
Unbelievable.
few words as possible. If you got bugs on your wood, you owe me money or you die.
Right. I don't know. Some people have suggested that due to his history segments, Nick is a form of borer.
Oh, that's terrible, Mike. On air like that in front of his family.
But does he kill wood when he does it though?
I resemble that remark.
But this is just. I mean, people have to remember that when you. I mean, even the police say that police stops are serious business. They put their life on the line. They don't know who they're pulling over.
Yeah.
It is a hostile encounter.
Always.
You never know how it's going to turn out. That is something that should be reserved for absolute necessity. You have someone who's potentially violent on the loose, and you're going to try to track them down. But to just be using these right and left be stopping people wholesale that aren't even suspected of a crime. It's unconstitutional. The DWI checkpoints are unconstitutional. This goes even further and less justification. I don't know how people tolerate this. It is. I care about the environment, but human lives come first.
Yeah, is there a way to do it without violence? Is the question.
Right.
And I mean, I've worked for surgeons before. I equate it the same thing. It's like, what is the safest surgery to have? The one you don't have. It's like,
Right.
what's the safest police interaction? The one you don't have, right? You don't want to get yourself into that situation if you can avoid it, because you just never know. So
Yeah, and there's a real sort of disconnect between customer business in this way. If you call law enforcement business and us the customers, there's a real disconnect of, even if you have well-intentioned people working in law enforcement, it's like at some point they don't realize that they're really just not doing any good. They're just not making their customers happy.
yeah, they wouldn't make me happy. Paul.
No, I'm not happy. I want to keep my wood. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not looking forward to the advertisements. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck from prison? Just the woodchuck behind bars. It's really sad.
It is sad. What's the difference between a woodchuck and a beaver, Mike?
DNA.
It's got to be the tail. I mean, the beaver's got that leathery
Oh, I think you're right.
tail, and they build the dams.
I tried to stump you after you called out Nick like that, but you
I-
moved right through it.
I'm a variety of borer as well. Don't get me started on
We'll ask the wife.
woodland creatures. Yeah.
Speaking of which, there was an angry beaver in the parking lot the other night, and it was charging people. So I had to wait for it to go away before I parked and
It's
went
a
inside.
family program. Are we gonna local happenings?
Yeah. What's going on in the area? Is there something to do with other wildlife? I think.
Yeah, so Fisher Cats.
Lots of critters.
So the New Hampshire Fisher Cats baseball. There's a Libertarian Party New Hampshire kind of just get together out. It's the park in Manchester on June 10th at 7 p.m. If you're interested, if you would go to lpnh.org/baseball. It's in the pavilion, and there are it's like a private type of suite. There's a buffet that's limited to just our group, and there's also private access to the bar, I believe. So it's going to be a fun night, and it's a beautiful ballpark. If you
Yeah,
like,
it is really nice. That's the
Yeah.
one in Match, right?
yeah, yep. If you love
This is
baseball,
the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire.
yes. And Gilletta Jarvis, who is going to be running for governor in 2018, will be throwing out the first pitch.
So, wow. So,
And a Star Wars night.
is this open to? Do you have to be part of the party right now to participate in
No.
this? So how do you get involved?
You just go to lpnh.org/baseball. You just click tickets and order one. And
So if someone's interested, and the LP, as we've mentioned on previous shows, now has 2 state reps as part of the party. It's the largest libertarian party among the 50 states.
Caucus.
Excuse me. Wow. And so, if you are interested in this juncture to learn more about the LPNH, it sounds like a great time to go out and have some fun and meet some LP folks.
Nick, do you know how much the tickets are? Did you say?
what are they? $80? Oh, $40 because I got 80 for
Of course,
because
yeah.
me and my friend are going.
Yeah.
So $40.
That includes the buffet.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
Great.
And it's a beautiful park. Yeah. Okay, shall we move on to talk about Dash with Joel, I think, right?
All right. So, Joel, why don't you start out? So we're going to both talk about your the consortium you're involved with, Dash Forward, correct?
Dash Force News.
Dash Force. And then
There we go.
And then
the last of those 3 attempts, 3 strikes, you're not quite out.
Dash Force. And then we'll get into a broader sort of philosophical discussion about governing through a blockchain. So why don't you start out? Tell us a little bit, remind us a little bit about yourself, and tell us about Dash Force.
Yes. So what do you want to know about me?
Just very, very briefly.
Well, he was on episode 2. If you guys want to check back, we kind of
Right.
had a little biography on that episode. But
why don't you tell us how you got involved in crypto, in the crypto
Yes.
world?
So I moved to New Hampshire in 2013 as part of this Free State project that we've been hearing about earlier in the program. And
One of those.
oh yeah, and on my drive over, someone paid me for part of their lunch in Bitcoin that I paid for the pizza, and they were like, "Kick me some Bitcoin." So that was like $15, $10 worth, and at the end of the year of 2013, that was worth well over $100.
You kept it. You didn't touch it. You just
I
left it
didn't.
there.
I started spending it at that point.
Yeah.
So I didn't. I got rid of that bit before the price went down to like 200 or whatever. So that sort of got me into it, and just living in this community, I started to try to use alternative forms of payment in digital currencies mostly. I'd always been a big like gold and silver bug, but come on, you can't really use that. And this was something I could actually use that was not Federal Reserve notes, that was not central bank controlled.
Okay, so a lot of people have heard of Bitcoin. I mean, it's pretty well known, well covered. Dash is kind of new on the scene, relatively,
Yeah,
for the people who aren't
2014.
in the know. So why don't you very quickly give us an overview of what's Dash? How is it different than Bitcoin?
So Dash is a fork of Bitcoin, right? It was chained. It's very similar. It's similar to Bitcoin and it does the same basic transaction type thing, but it has a second layer governance on top, right? With Bitcoin, when like the miners run the whole network basically, and 100% of the block reward or all of the new coins created go to the miners.
And that's rewarded for processing payments, essentially.
Yes, and then all transaction fees as well. With Dash, it's a 45-45-10 split. 45% goes to the miners, 45% goes to masternodes, who are stakeholders who stake 1,000 Dash and help make governance decisions and run the network. And 10% is set aside for this thing called the treasury, which is just a random pot of money that is used to pay for random things for the project, right?
So for an end user, I mean, if you're not a crypto nerd like us, how is Dash different? What benefits would it offer as opposed to Bitcoin?
Yeah, right at this moment, Dash is much, much cheaper. Bitcoin transactions are a few dollars, I guess, per transaction now. It's gotten pretty crazy. Dash is still under a cent for a transaction, and you can get instantly confirmed transactions in 1.3 seconds for just a couple pennies. And as the CEO of WalveCoins is so fond of pointing out, Dash is the only payment system in the world that offers instant permanent settlement, right? The only thing other than cash, because cash, I give you the money, we're done, it's over. Any other transaction, any other form of payment, it's like, well, we're kind of done, but it has to like settle, has to confirm like later on in the day, like a credit card or
Takes
something.
days to process, yeah.
Yeah, or a Bitcoin transaction back in the old days would be like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. But Dash 1.3 seconds, you're done. You can just...
Now, how does Dash manage to do that when Bitcoin can't?
Well, the way Dash does that is through a second layer run by the masternodes. So what the masternodes do, right? You have these stakeholders that vote on what happens with the 10% of the budget and other things. One of the things they do is they all say, all right, this transaction that showed up, we're locking it down. We're just saying this one can't go anywhere. This is legit until the miners catch up and officially confirm it like Bitcoin style. But so
it sounds like they're extending some credit. So if there was something wrong with that transaction, the masternode would eat the cost if it
not
went
really,
south?
because it basically prevents it from going south at that point. It locks in the input, so you cannot then send that to another destination.
I see.
So it just makes it offers a few instant confirmations.
All right, so I don't want to get too much into the weeds because we got general audiences, but why don't you tell us a little bit about Dash Force and your involvement?
Yeah, so the way Dash's treasury system works, it's sort of intended like to fund development. One of the reasons Bitcoin is going through all these issues is because its development team was not funded, and therefore people would do it for free, and that allowed for a company to come in and start paying some of these developers and then start pushing their agenda through Bitcoin, which is not necessarily in tune with the needs of the rest of the users. So Dash has this treasury to pay basically the development team, but it's really just to pay anyone who the masternodes, the stakeholders, vote for, right? So you got about 4,500 masternodes right now, and
4,500?
Yes,
Like almost 5,000.
yes, almost 5,000. And what happens when they can just vote for any budget proposal that they think will make the network better, and so obviously the Dash core team is like the main entity under the Dash DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. I'm sure we'll get back to that in a bit. that they're deal with all the coding, the technical stuff, all that kind of stuff. But there was this big sort of gap. Like when Bitcoin came out first, there was so much energy, so much grassroots enthusiasm, so many people going out and like, here, I'll give you some free Bitcoin, I'll do this, I'll do that, and doing all that stuff out of the goodness of their heart. So obviously there's true believers in Dash as well, but they thought, well, why not do like a proprietary like on the ground grassroots type force? So Dash Force started first as mainly what I like to call a troll patrol, right? Because Dash came under heavy trolling from competitive other projects, heavy trolling, and then since it's basically there's not a lot of the kinds of people involved with Dash are more just live and let live, calm, peaceful, just I'm not going to be an immature internet troll, whatever. So they mostly just took all these there's all these misconceptions floating around about Dash online, and so basically, finally, one fellow, Brian Freeman, decided, hey, I'm going to put a stop to this. I'm going to start this thing called the Dash Force, where we're going to actually have a team of people out there on the internet commenting, making sure to correct the misconceptions, making sure to spread positive news stories, etc.
Well, counter propaganda.
Yes, sort of. You could say that.
Well, good. I don't mean to use that as too loaded, but yeah, I mean, if you don't, it is true that if you don't have someone speaking out for you, then people are gonna say what they will, and sometimes that information is wrong.
Yes, if something is said, if a lie is said, and there is no counter to it, it becomes truth.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's what you're out there spreading the good word about Dash.
Yes.
And
The dish on Dash.
Whoa.
That's why you're here.
Yep.
That was the beginning.
I know
of the
my role.
project.
And the Dash Force is funded out of the treasury from Dash.
Yes.
So the master nodes had voted and said, this is a worthwhile activity. We want this to happen. It's good for the network. It's good for Dash. And so they all voted to pay how much to Dash Force, and how does that distributed within your force?
Yeah. So to start out with, it was his moniker, Mastermind, right? Starting this whole project and just having a few people sort of on, through tipping and then part-time doing this. And then myself and another fellow from the UK, Mark Mason, joined on as part-time people and then full-time people, and now we're all three equal partners in this. So basically what happens is
it public information how much Dash Force is?
Yes.
I assume because it's blockchain, everything's transparent.
Yes.
That's why I ask.
Yes, I believe I sent you the actual proposal.
Right,
I can I can look it up. It's a couple hundred Dash for the whole thing, right?
Okay.
So there's about 3 full-timers, like a half dozen part-timers under there. And so what happens, the newly created coins go straight to the address specified in the proposal. So, the mastermind's still the treasurer, so it goes straight to an address there, and then it gets distributed. And so that's how it works. It goes straight there.
So there is some trust involved that he has to then distribute. Because this is going to get into, we're talking about next governing through a blockchain.
Yes.
So there's interesting questions about, let's dive right into this. So you've got basically a lot of stuff going on automatically. You've got these master nodes. Anyone can become a master node by pledging a certain amount of Dash. This all functions on this computer network, this peer-to-peer network. But then there's going to be a time and place where that has to interface with human trust and contracts and so on and so forth.
Yes. In fact, anyone, if you think about it, anyone can submit a proposal. There is an anti-spam fee of 5 Dash, which right now is like $600-700, but before it was a lot cheaper. Basically, you have to do that to just submit a proposal, but you could essentially just put a bunch of periods in the entire proposal and just say, give me like 100 Dash, and then if people vote for that, they just get you money. Like, there has to be trust you have to make your actual human case. And the reason for this is because obviously we're in the very early stages of decentralized governance. And just like with government, when you have an overabundance of rules, that tends to start to jump in and squash down human creativity and potential, because there's you got to run around this little like rat race maze of regulations. You're very confined. And so rather than that, it's just make your case on why you deserve money, are you a trusted person, and then you can get money.
Now,
And that's actually key, though. Is it's on the human end. There's a reputation element. I mean, if you might be able to get one through and screw around and not do anything productive with the funding, but then no one's going to give you funding again after that.
so this is a recurring payment. I imagine a lot of the proposals take form of
Yes.
recurring. So
I
the
thought
mon-
it was you had to ask monthly or something.
Yes, I believe that the Dash Force in particular has every 3 months, right? So
they submit a new proposal.
yes,
to
you have
continue.
to keep. You can't just like say pay me and you're done, right?
Okay.
Unless it's a one-off project. But so this is, I think it's the third iteration of the Dash Force. So clearly, there's been a continuing trust issue, a continuing trust built up from the community that hey, we're going to deliver. And in fact, we added a few different projects that we didn't promise that we didn't get paid for last time, right? So first it was just we're going to run the comment thing, the troll patrol type thing. We're going to do a great job with that, and then give some tips for other community activities like for running meetups, just funding for that, for other things like that, for running tech support. And so in that time, right, we started a proprietary news website, Dash Force News, which is already doing great if I say so myself, and I'm sure you'll see this podcast posted on that site, so hopefully you get a little view bump from that.
Great.
Yay. And then we also started a site called discoverdash.com, which is a merchant adoption site, which will be, if I may say so myself, the best cryptocurrency business listing and adoption out there.
All right.
Still working on it. So these things got done without having asked for the funding for that. And so now when we just came to for funding another time, it's like
You showed value.
look at all the value we created for Dash above and beyond our expectations. You can trust us, give us more money. And then they're like, sweet.
Great. So so that's very and that makes a lot of sense. So then getting to the human part, you have this partnership. All the money goes to one address, and then I guess is that also based on reputation, where you basically they just extend a certain amount of trust. Hey, we're going to structure things this way, or does that now get into contracts and legalism and so on and so forth, more to traditional?
So within the organization, mosquito run around here. Within the organization, we of course have our own agreements and our own private agreements and documentation thereof and all that stuff. But essentially, the way this is the reason that this proposal system has worked so well for. I can't remember exactly when it started, but it's been a few years. The reason it's worked so well for a few years is because it's so flexible. It's just vote, is this worth it? Bam, there you go, right to this address. And so because there's not a lot of room for error, and I'd like to give an example with this about the importance of like the human element. There was this project called the DAO, which was touted as the first decentral autonomous organization because they completely ignored that Dash had already beat them to the punch and had a functioning one, right? So it was an Ethereum project that was essentially, I'm not overly familiar with the end goal, but essentially it was like it could provide as an investment vehicle, and essentially stakeholders in this could then vote and make decisions, etc. And unfortunately, it was overly complex, and there was an exploit in the code that allowed a hacker to just steal everyone's money, and then that caused a big problem with
60
Ethereum.
million, I think.
Yeah, something like
60
that.
million US was
Yeah,
lost.
and
if I recall
that
correctly.
caused Ethereum to do a hard fork to basically roll back time and make sure those transactions never existed according to them, and that caused a split in the community because they're like, well, wait, you can't just like rewrite history because some of your biggest project didn't work out. So that caused a split. Now the Ethereum Classic is another thing, and Ethereum Classic is still forked from Ethereum from that Discord and is now like over 1 billion.
Well, this is going to be very, very weeds for a lot of our listeners.
So to summarize that, they tried to do too much through the code, and there was an exploit, and it all went down in flames. And
So I guess
Dash
the
was successful
question
from its simplicity.
is, the DAO failed, but we're talking about DAOs as a concept. What when we're talking about governing through a blockchain, what can blockchains do? What services can they provide that currently are considered the domain of traditional governments?
Okay, so I don't know. Pick something. Pick a thing that gets
Make a
done.
sandwich.
Okay, how about this? How about
you pick something.
yes? How about a neighborhood patrol / police force, but not so much like more of like a security force, right? Let's just take it really really simple. What if you had a blockchain that said you are able to vote if you provide cryptographic proof of having paid at least this much per month into this nonprofit type thing for the community, right? And then, obviously you pay more, you get more of a vote, and then you can have contractors that, let's just copy straight from the DAO, right? Let's submit, have a little proposal fee so they have to actually pay into this thing in order for the chance to get at it. So you can't just have some shady character just running and trying to get money, right? Then they perform the security contract services, and then the community then votes if they want to keep on paying these people or not, straight through this blockchain. It's all very, very public and completely transparent.
So just to boil it down, I think it sounds like the difference is that in the pre-blockchain world, you have to do a lot of verifying. If someone wants to vote in a election, a U.S. election, they have to be registered, and you want to check them against documentation and their birth certificate and so on. But with the blockchain, you can use cryptography to decide who gets a vote.
Yes,
and that's what it boils down to.
Yes, and with the cryptography, you can provide pseudonymous proof of identity, right? Like I'm sure some people here use Keybase, for example, to link all their social media accounts or whatever to a private key or a private identity that proves who they are, even though it might not be linked to their slave name or their government paperwork or anything like that. So if you say you have like a condo community and you just assign like a cryptographic address to each one of those units, right? Everyone living there proves I am one of these units, right? Although you don't have to say which one or who you are. Then you can all vote. You can all vote on what exactly you want to do with the HOAs, what kind of lawn care you want, et cetera, et cetera. You can all vote, and if you have like a larger unit or you pay more in this, then you can have a heavier vote or something. You can set all that up, and it can be completely transparent yet completely private.
Now, in a previous episode, we had talked about the roadmap to a free society, and we sort of came to the conclusion that citizenship was a key thing to repeal and replace with something voluntary. And it sounds like blockchains, and I know there have been some projects along these lines, blockchains are a way to prove belonging without needing a big organization to stamp off on it. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's true. It's if you think about legal structures, try to do the exact same thing, except all they can do, it's all just words on a paper that no one has to follow. And the only way you can get people to follow that, according to the old model, is to then just hire someone to beat their head with a stick if they don't comply, right? That's the old model. And it was by switching to the new model, because of the way blockchains work, you don't need, for some of these self-executing things like, okay, who gets money from what, right? You don't need a force to go do it. It's sort of self-executing. And one thing that with smart contracts, you'll have more and more self-executing actions in this ecosystem. And of course, always a big warning with that is start simple, try it out for a few years, make sure it works practically, and then build on the complexity.
All right, so just to wrap up, do you think that blockchains are the way of the future? Do you think that that really this is how things are going to be organized in the future? And what benefits do you see for just average people coming out of that?
Yes, I definitely think that this is going to be a key, if not one of the main underpinnings of the society of the future.
The way people organize, yeah.
Yes, because basically everything in legal structures across time has been written, right? It's basically the invention of writing to the next level. It's like the invention of writing changed so much for how humanity is structured. This is the next level invention of writing. So it's going to be huge.
What an average person 50 years from now, Can you think of a way or two that their life might be impacted by this change?
Yes. So first off, the services or groups that they're under will probably be, except for just a couple, will probably not be geographically dependent. They'll be part of decentralized autonomous organizations all around the world with members, all around the world.
Rather than having to be a U.S. citizen because
location.
you're here, you could be a citizen
Yes.
of the,
Whatever group that would give you certain benefits based
Yes.
on your
the
preferences.
pink microphone nation, and everyone who
Very
has a
creative.
pink microphone around the world
Yes.
can all belong to that
So-
same group.
We're a unique group.
If I were to categorize into three things, I believe that the governance of the future will be, first off, hyper global and hyper local at the same time. Right? You'll just your little neighborhood is what you're going to care about in terms of the physical things, and as for everything else, it could be just all over the world. Right? Hyper global and hyper local at the same time. You'll have it be hyper efficient. Right? You don't have this big clunky old system. Everything will just run very smoothly. You'll be able to get the kinds of services you want from public services, right? Very efficiently. And third thing is it'll be highly voluntary, right? Because the only reason we have these kind of old archaic systems is because you can have someone just beat your
Well,
head in
and
with a stick.
there was no other way. That's the
Yes.
thing, is like now there's another way to
Yes.
provide these services without the force.
Yeah, there was no other way to provide like an in stone kind of something you could absolutely rely on. I mean, obviously you could do everything voluntarily. There was still a little bit of a, there's argument that you could always do it voluntarily and have it be more efficient than the forceful way. But in order to have that uniform sort of result, you kind of whack people, which I don't personally think that was a worthwhile sacrifice. But anyway, yeah, the third thing is voluntary. You'll be able to just choose your DAOs. Your
Well, I'll
governance.
tell you, I'm feeling pretty hyper thinking about that future. And Joel, thank you very much
Yes,
for
you can't cross the border. They'll get you now.
thank you very much for coming and sharing that with us.
All right, so we talked about the future. Why don't we talk about the past, Nick?
Alrighty.
What was going on in the past?
All right. There's a man called Henry Wilson.
Hank.
Not Hank.
My buddy.
Harry.
Henry Wilson. That's what he preferred to be called. And we'll get into it, and you'll understand why in a moment.
All right, right on.
So most people remember Franklin Pierce, the only president from New Hampshire. Not many people remember vice presidents.
No.
Wilson was born in Farmington, New Hampshire, just down the road from where we are right now, in 1812. And he was the only vice president born in New Hampshire. His birth name was Jeremiah Jones Colbath.
That crazy man.
I can see why he changed it.
Yeah, maybe he wanted a hot bath for once.
His father apparently gave him that name because Jeremiah Jones was a wealthy neighbor of his and was a childless bachelor and hoped that he would bequeath his wealth to Wilson when he died. He didn't.
That sounds like a comedy movie today,
So Wilson grew up poor, so poor in fact that Wilson was indentured to a neighboring farmer when he was 10 years old and worked with the farmer for 10 years. At the end, he received 6 sheep and 2 oxen, which he sold immediately for $85.
Wow.
Wilson didn't like
Yeah.
his birth name and petitioned the New Hampshire General Court to legally change it to Henry Wilson when he was 21. According to his brother, he changed it to Henry Wilson because he read a biography about a teacher in Philadelphia with that name. That same year, he changed his
Not
name.
Hank.
Not Hank. The same year he changed his name in 1833, Wilson moved to Natick, Mass. because he was trying to find work. Wilson walked there from Farmington.
Cool.
And I did a Google Map search.
Yeah, we know someone in our community who does that kind of things. He goes on foot between states.
So I did a Google Map search, and it's a 30-hour walk, and it's 89.8 miles in present day with all the present roads.
That's not bad.
It's doable. I mean,
That's not. I actually thought it would take a week, but
Well,
Still-
I mean, 30 hours continuous walking.
Right. Exactly.
isn't that how you do it? You just go. You Terminator it.
yeah,
Is
I
that
mean,
right? You
no
can't
sleep.
No sleep.
Nope.
Well, yeah, I mean, humans
sleepwalk.
are
No sleep till Natick.
humans are incredible distance runners by nature. So maybe he got a nice jog, made it in like 20.
So Wilson got a job making shoes. After learning the trade within a few weeks, he bought out his contract for $15 and opened his own shop. He was very successful very quickly, saving hundreds of dollars in a relatively short amount of time. There was a legend saying that he once attempted to make 100 shoes without sleeping, but fell asleep with 100th pair in his hand.
Well, this guy certainly likes walking and all things associated with it.
Yeah. Later in his political years, he was nicknamed the Natick Cobbler. Working so hard deteriorated his health, so he went to Virginia to recuperate. On a stop in Washington, D.C., he heard congressional debates on slavery and abolitionism and saw black families being separated from each other while being bought and sold. Personally, I think that this and being indentured himself as a child shaped his political leanings in the future.
I'm sure.
That would do it.
Oh, yeah.
He went to Stratford, Wolfboro, and Concord, New Hampshire academies to further his education, and he founded a shoe manufacturing company that employed over 100 people with only a $12 investment to start. In 1840, Wilson became politically active as a Whig, as opposed to a Democrat, and he was a member of the Massachusetts State Senate from 1844 to 46 and 1850 to 52. In his latter term, he was the Senate president. In 1845, Wilson, along with fellow Whig John Greenleaf Whittier, submitted a petition to Congress to not annex Texas as it would expand slavery. Wilson was a delegate in 1848 for the Whigs, but left the party after it nominated slaveholder Zachary Taylor for president.
Yeah, that would be a non-starter.
He collaborated with other anti-slavery people from Democrats, Know Nothing, Free Soilers, and other anti-slavery Whigs. He joined the Free Soil Party and was elected to the U.S. Senate in 1855 for Massachusetts by a coalition of Free Soilers, Know Nothings, and anti-slavery Democrats, because at the time the way the Senate process was elected by the legislature of the states.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be a branding fail there. Call yourselves the Know-Nothings.
I believe that's what.
Their opponents called them.
Yeah, that's what their opponents called them, and then they embraced the name, kind of like how the Big Bang Theory was similar. Scientists who disagreed with it, and then the people who came up with the theory embraced it.
Yeah. We don't know anything, and we're proud of that fact.
Once in the Senate, he was very polarizing. At the height of the antebellum tension, he got challenged to a duel twice. Well, the first time by South Carolina Representative Preston Brooks, because Brooks had punched and knocked out Senator Charles Sumner, and Wilson said Brooks was, quote, brutal, murderous, and cowardly. And the second time was California Senator William Gwynn, who Wilson had made a speech saying Gwynn and the California government were corrupt.
Even back then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some things never change.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And Gwynn actually was a former congressman from Mississippi, too. So he was a pro-slavery person. And as soon as the congressional session ended in the summer of 1861, Wilson went back to Massachusetts and recruited and equipped 2,300 men to fight in the not-so-Civil War and commanded the 22nd Massachusetts Regiment from late September to late October. And then I think this is a pretty funny story. In July 1861, Wilson was present at the first Battle of Bull Run just outside of D.C. There are many senators, representatives, reporters, and other elites there. They assumed a quick Union victory. Wilson rode out in a carriage with a picnic hamper of sandwiches to feed the troops. However, the Confederates routed the Union troops, and Wilson was almost captured by the Confederates while his carriage was crushed. He had to walk all the way back to Washington by foot.
He had that kind of experience, though, so he was...
Yeah, I'm sure he had
was
the
okay.
finest shoes in the land.
True. In December 1861, Wilson introduced a bill to abolish slavery in D.C., which was signed into law in April 1862. Throughout the war, he introduced several other abolition bills that were signed into law. Then in 1872, Wilson became the VP running mate for incumbent Ulysses Grant's presidential campaign. Wilson supported black civil rights, yay. Voting rights for women, yay. Federal education aid, boo.
Boo.
Regulation of businesses, boo.
Boo.
And prohibition of liquor, boo.
Boo.
I wanted to like him, too.
I know. And so they ran on a working man's candidate because Grant also came up from a pretty poor background. Grant and Wilson were elected, but Wilson was involved in the Credit Mobilier scandal, which Wilson admitted to. He accepted $2,000 from Union Pacific Railroad to support legislation for the Trans-Pacific Railroad. In May 1873, 2 months into his vice presidency, he suffered a stroke and was in poor health until he died 2 years later from another stroke on November 22nd, 1875, in the Capitol building.
If you're gonna go, that would be the place to do it. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Die where dreams die.
Right on. Well, I wanted to not like him, and then I started to like him, and
Now you're neutral.
now I'm a little bit neutral.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah,
great walker.
I prefer my abolitionists in the Lysander Spooner form.
There's that.
Yes.
Being both pro-abolition and against the war between the states. But I guess you can't be perfect. Being against slavery at that time was being on the right side of history, at least. And so I guess he has got that going for him.
Yep.
He does.
But that name, Jeremiah, what was it?
Jeremiah Jones Colbath.
Colbath. It sounded like Colbath was kind of a good summary of his childhood.
Yeah.
Poor kid.
And
Grew up a
in,
Colbath.
in Farmington, outside of the Farmington Country Club, you could see the historic marker with his name on there.
Really?
Yep.
We'll have to take a. No, we won't.
Field trip.
I won't ever do it.
Yeah, we'll have to walk there though.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks, Nick. So we make the Freecast because we enjoy sharing news, knowledge, and fun with you. Yes, all of you, dear listeners.
Me
Each
too.
one of you, Matt. Well, you're here, but yeah. But anyway, give us feedback. You can connect with us on our website, freecoastfreecast.com, or by emailing freecoastfreecast@gmail.com. This show is for you, so tell us what you think about it. Spread the word if you like the show. Don't keep it to yourself. Write an iTunes review. Share an episode on social media. Write us up on your blog. Invite us to lunch. All that stuff. And then lastly, if you really like us, you can become a sponsor. We don't do this for an income, of course. All sponsorship funds go to support activities of the Liberty community on the Free Coast. So it's a great way to show that you care about what we are doing. So
Yes. Do you accept
Thank you.
Dash?
Yeah, of course.
Bam.
perhaps. Excellent.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay, well, thanks everybody for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, for Mike, Nick, Roger, and our special guest Joel, I'm Matt. You have yourself a good night. Take care.